I just love being up high and getting myself up high and then being up high and staying up high and going down and up and down and up all day. And then that feeling at the end of the day when you've done like 8 or 10 hours and you're coming down, there's nothing like it. And I am very competitive. I was dry stone walling with my husband and you do one side each. And I can't bear it if he gets to the end of his row before I get to the end of my row.
Welcome back to Season 3 of the RunAlive Podcast. We're so excited to be back for a third season. Gary, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I can't believe it's the third season of the podcast. It's been massive fun to do, and it's grown and grown. We're up to, from zero, we're up to about 750 listeners a month at the moment, which is pretty cool.
It was pretty amazing to think that it was just a year ago that we were putting out that first episode with Damien, and it's grown from there.
Yeah. It is incredible. Time flies, and as I said though on some social media a while ago, you've just got to start and then let things grow from there. Our audience has been growing, but I would also say that our team has been growing. I'd like to welcome Jenny to the podcast.
Hello, everybody. I am the new co-host of the podcast.
So good to have you on the team, Jenny. For those who haven't listened to your episode in the last season or haven't seen on social, who are you, Jenny?
Who am I? That's a very good question. I am a distance runner. I'm also a fiance, newly.
We're going to hear more about that in a minute.
And I generally just enjoy doing life. So I guess that kind of sums me up.
Fantastic.
That's awesome.
I love the way you had to pause on the who are you question, which tunes in with the whole thing about the RunAlive podcast, because it's never a straightforward question, is it? We had you on last season and you very graciously shared a lot of your story and told us a lot about your life. What on earth made you want to jump on board and be part of the podcast, Jenny?
You know what? There's so many things about this podcast that I really enjoyed listening to when I came on as a guest, and I went back and looked through other episodes. But one thing for me that really stood out was like the reason behind why people choose to run and the process it has in their life, away from what I commonly discuss with people, and that is running splits, race times, PBs, whether the course is undulating or not. I think diving like a little bit deeper into like the reasons behind people run and why that is has really opened my eyes to a lot of things. And I really wanted to kind of get involved with that and get my questions in and dig a bit deeper into other people's lives as well.
Oh, well, so excited to have you on the podcast, Jenny. Welcome to the team. And it's been great to get to know you. Really looking forward to getting to know you more over the course of this season. This season, Gary, tell us how it's going to work and what's coming up.
What's it going to look like? Yeah, so we'll be with you as usual every Friday. We'll be putting out episodes. That'll be our main episode, but every Tuesday following up on that, we'll have a whole bunch of short episodes. Those are going to be really fun. It's just an opportunity to hear more from different people who love to run, but also love to make a difference in their sport or have a particular viewpoint on life, which we think is just going to be really relevant to our main audience. So yeah, 2 ways of coming at you every Friday and every Tuesday.
And I'm really looking forward to those. So far, the guests we've spoken to have had such amazing stories and have shone a light on so many different parts of life and reasons behind why they run and what role that's had in their lives. So I'm very excited about releasing these. But we also want to share a bit of our own journeys. And as Gary said, we'll be with you every week to share this story with you too. So Ed, this podcast was your idea. Let's start with you. What have you got coming up in the next couple of months?
Thank you. Well, yeah, obviously the big thing looming on my mind, which I'm trying to not be obsessed with too early, is I'm running a London Marathon in 6 or so weeks' time. And, training it's that big training block, trains kicking in, long runs. I was just saying before we recorded, I feel permanently tired at the moment, but that's no sympathy because I'm doing it to myself. Work still. Yeah, I mean, there's bits and bobs going on with that, and we've been painting a house, and we've had a bit of a building project going on. So there's lots and lots of stuff that is that's going on. I'm trying to juggle at the moment.
What's special about the London Marathon for you, and what are you hoping to get out of it this year?
Oh, well, that's a good question. I mean, the London Marathon is like central to why I'm still running, really. Like I always wanted to run a marathon. I used to run when I was at school, and then I didn't run for a bit when I was at university, but I always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to run a marathon. And my dad sadly died from prostate cancer in 2014, and that was really the impetus that I needed. So I thought I would love to run the London Marathon in his name, and that's how I got back into running. I basically Googled a training plan, fell back on my training that I knew from school, bought some trainers, and started to train for it, and ran my first marathon in 2015. Got fit, felt healthier, felt better, not just as a fitter person or a more healthy person, but also in life, at home, at work, etc. as well. So, and that's kind of where this podcast came out of. So that's really kind of like my why of running. It's always been a special race, and that race, I'd set myself a goal of sub 3:30 and around 3:22. So I was delighted. My mum, I think, actually managed to see me 7 or 8 times on the course. So she ran as much as a marathon as I did that day, actually getting around. That's like epic. But I knew as soon as I crossed the line that I could have gone faster. And that's basically been my running story ever since, trying to get faster. So in terms of this year, still trying to get faster, whisper it, but hoping that it might get somewhere near 2:40. Sub 2:40 would be a championship start. So, that's the goal. But it's a big chunk. We'll see. It was 2:45 last year, so it's quite a lot to shave off.
Wow. And how's training going, Ed?
It's going all right. I had a little bit of a niggle a couple of weeks ago, but seem to have recovered from that. 22 miles at the weekend. Racing next weekend. Got the classic distance of 16 miles to race over next weekend. So we'll see how that goes. It's fingers crossed.
Cool.
Gary, what about you? Because you've been struggling for a little bit of quite a while actually now, not a little bit, with your knee, and is there any running going on for you? How are you filling your time?
Yeah, boy, how am I filling my time? Well, just hearing you talk about the juggle, Ed, there's been lots going on outside of running. I'm self-employed, and that just keeps you super busy. It's always a nice problem to have when you're self-employed. So that's been keeping me busy. We also had a bunch of work done on our house, so I'm glad that's behind us. So the horizon is a little bit clearer. But you're absolutely right. About a year ago, I developed some issues with my right knee. Some people who know me really well will know that I have a former shadowy career playing a lot of basketball, and way, way back, I ruptured my anterior cruciate ligament, and the knee has been brilliant. I had that ligament reinstated, but I always kind of knew it was a little bit at risk of some complications down the line. And about a year ago, it started I had some issues with it. I'm actually back running though. It's been an interesting journey. It started to cause me some issues a year ago. I took a whole bunch of time off. As you know, I didn't run very much, but now I'm back running 2 or 3 times a week, back on the track a bit, doing a lot on the bike. Even more shadowy in my athletic career. I've been a duathlete.
Well, I'm not sure you're allowed on the podcast now. You've admitted to being a cyclist.
Well, am I allowed to say? I own 7 different bikes. I mean, that's almost as many pairs of running shoes as
7?
Yeah.
7?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
They've all got a very specific use, Ed. That's the true reason for that. But I do love cycling, and I love being on the road, both running but also on my bike. So I've been doing a fair bit of that. I haven't set a running goal yet, so I'm super jealous of what you and Jenny have got lined up. You guys have got such cool stuff, and I love having a goal, right? I love having a race to train for. I haven't done that yet. With running, haven't set a goal. I might do. I think actually goal 0 is do a park run nearby, and get that out of the way.
And when might we expect that? Not putting any pressure on you.
That's a great shout. I think I live really, really near a park run out here in the Surrey-Hampshire border, and it's almost rude that I don't go to the one that I can jog to in about 5 minutes from my front door. So I might do that in the next few weeks. It's
Okay, cool.
It is a little bit undulating, just to throw that word in for the second time this podcast. But yeah, I'll do that. And I'm probably going to set myself a couple of cycling goals. I might bore everyone on this podcast as I maybe make a journey towards doing my first 100-mile on the bike later on in the year. But we'll see. We'll see.
Oh, hello. That
We'll
sounds
be
awesome.
Yeah, exactly. But Jenny, you've got a whole bunch of stuff coming up this year. I'm going to be living vicariously through you. Do you want to start with running, or do you want to start on the personal side?
Oh, should we start with the running? I sometimes feel like it's a part of my life.
Go for it. What's coming up?
Yeah, this year is kind of, obviously there's the big event that only happens every 4 years, the Olympic Games in the summer. And I guess like every athlete's going to say their goal of getting there would be top of their list, and it's still mine. But I also have a realistic goals set as well. This year the European champs are in Rome, and I'm a bit of I do love Italy, and I do like a little trip away. So getting a place on the team would be nice to tick that box off. I've got the standard for the 5K already. I ran 15:10 in February for the 5K, and I'm eyeing up the 10K standard now, which is 32 minutes. And I'll be heading down south to London in May to run the night of the 10,000 metre PBs.
Nice.
And I would recommend to anybody listening to this podcast that if they are free on the 18th of May to head down to Parliament Hill and watch the event. It's free to watch, and there is a bar on lane 3 of the track. So the beer and cheer is real, and we would really appreciate all the support. So that's the immediate goal for me, and we'll take it from there. But yeah, I'm really hoping to make the team for the European champs in the summer.
That's
awesome.
I guess.
Yeah, get down to Parliament Hill. It's a fabulous event, and Jenny, well, I'm going to say Jenny needs your support. She does, but also she doesn't, because you're in great form now. That PB that you ran, that's a PB, going back quite a way. Yeah.
So I guess a little bit about me. You can go back to listen to the episode I was on last series, but I had a bit of a terrible 2023, and with various different health issues, mental health issues, that kind of prevented me from performing anywhere near where I'd want to be. So it was a real nice surprise relief to run a new PB in February this year. And I think it's a testament of all the people around me and myself for kind of continuing to believe in what I was capable of and actually putting it into action. So yeah, I'm proud of myself for that.
And you're racing again this weekend?
Yes, I am. Another festival of running. Apparently, I've never done it before. I think it's a new event, but I'm racing the Podium 5K in Leicester on Saturday night. I was hoping that perhaps because it's in March and it's a bit of a down month for quite a lot of people, it wouldn't be as loaded as it is. But we've got athletes from all across Europe and Africa as well. I think there's a girl there entered with a PB of 14:35. So there is a big time or a big bonus for a world record. So I think she might be eyeing up that.
Wow. Good luck, Jenny. Good luck with that.
Wow. Well, we're looking forward to hearing how that goes.
So I'm really looking forward to it. 5K on the road is not something I do very often, so it'll be fun to go and have a hard hit out.
Very cool. And you've got a small matter of a wedding later in the year, potentially. Have you got? Is that happening this year? Have you got a date for that?
The wedding admin is hotting up. I honestly did not believe or just realise how much there was to it. We actually went over to visit my mum this weekend and popped to visit a venue in the Cotswolds. That was the first venue we went to see, and I really liked it. And I would be happily, sign on the dotted line and not go and look at any others. So we'll see what comes of that. But we're planning a wedding back end of next year. It's a logistical nightmare to try and plan it around a track season, a road season, and a cross-country season. But we've settled on a date near the end of September. So hopefully everything kind of matches up and we can get it done.
Fantastic. Yeah, you need more luck with that than you do with a running mate. I'll tell you that for sure.
Absolutely.
Oh, Jenny, well, it's so good to have you on the podcast. So good to hear you getting back to a great space and a fast space as well. And we're really looking forward to tracking with you in the next 8 to 10 weeks over the course of the podcast and hearing how that goes as you're moving towards the 97,000 meter PBs.
I'll be sure to keep you all updated.
Yeah, I can't wait. One other thing to say before we get into the episode this week is we've got some really cool supporters and offers coming up on the podcast this season. So do stay tuned to the podcast to hear about those. And also you can check out our socials. Join us on Strava, and we'd love to welcome you to the Strava group. That's where we're running and cycling and commenting on each other's poor efforts or fabulous efforts,
or
as it might be.
level global efforts in the case.
And you can find out all the details about those links and stuff there. So without any further ado, let's get into it. This week, who have we got, Gary?
We've got an awesome guest this week. Every week is someone special, unique, with an amazing story to tell, but I was super delighted to have this guest on. She's an ultra running absolute legend, famous. I know she's kind of almost one of the people who transcends the sport for me. Breast cancer survivor, wonderful human being, deeply soulful. This is a great interview. It's Nicky Spinks.
You get your test results and they've got like little numbers and things after them, so you start wondering what that means and you start Googling it. It's never good. It's never, you don't understand it. You don't understand what they're writing. Better off not knowing. Well, not knowing, but asking them to explain it. So yeah, running was really, really important. I don't know what I'd have done if I hadn't been able to run. I'd have definitely got outside and done something, but there's not, you can't, I don't know, I can't get into gardening like I can get into running. Nothing's really as hard as breast cancer. I think also it's hard for you, but it's hard for all your family. It's hard telling people, it's hard watching them being worried about you. And also you sort of immerse yourself in it for however long you're in it. And it seems like a really long time. Everything goes so slowly. Well, I'm Nicky. I was a farmer and I am a fell runner, and I'm also an ultra runner and a coach and a race organizer. I started running in about 2001 in foot and mouth year. And I started on the road like I think a lot of people do. And then I saw an advert in the Runner's World for the Trunts, which was advertised as a fell race. And I went along absolutely terrified. It's only 4 miles and 500 foot. I actually went and recce'd it to make sure I didn't get lost. And so it was a series through the summer, and I did that, and that's when I got hooked onto fell running rather than road running, and I sort of quite quickly ditched the road running, except in winter when it's a must thing because the trails are just too muddy to get any quality on there. I still much prefer the trails in winter. I'll go out in summer and recce trails in winter that I can do in winter so that I know where I'm going and I don't get lost in winter when I do them in the dark. So, but yeah, still, that's how I sort of progressed. And I joined Penistone Footpath Runners, and that's when I heard of the Bob Graham because there was somebody in the club doing it, Andy Plummer. And within about 2 years, I was like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to go from a half marathon to Bob Graham. That's easy. And so I went ahead and I did. I think people were quite surprised, but I just had that knowledge that if I kept going for long enough, I would do the Bob Graham. And yeah, I did. And that's sort of, I didn't think I'd do more, but then I went, because it wasn't that hard, I wanted to push myself further. And I went to Wales to look at the Paddy Buckley, which is a lot harder. It's a lot faster, and it's just the Welsh rock is a lot sort of slippery. It's like a slate, and if it's wet, it's very slippery, and there's a lot more rock to do. and the route's not as well known. People don't know it. You don't get you do get support, but you have to know the route yourself rather than listening, relying on other people. And so, that's when I really looked into training, and I didn't get a coach, but I coached myself. I bought books and read up about it and did myself a plan and did proper speed work and hill work and stuff like that and got faster. But so I had my first attempt in 2006, and a month later, that's when I got the breast cancer. So that knocked me out for just a year. But I actually used the Paddy Buckley to get back on my feet. So in between all the operations, I was heading to Wales because you forget about what's happening to you when you're out on the mountains. And my friends were great. I know they were worried about me.
It's like the ultimate couch to 5K, isn't it? It's the couch to Paddy Buckley.
Yeah, it is actually. Yeah, and my legs were so full of anaesthetic. I was just so heavy-legged. It was horrible but good in the same way. I was always at the back of the group and struggling, but I still needed to do it. And I completed the Paddy Buckley the year after, in May 2007, in 25 hours and 55 minutes. So it was a bit down to the wire. But yeah, I think from there I just went to the Charlie Ramsey and got faster, so that I did the Charlie Ramsey in 22 and a half hours, which for me was an absolute dream. I'd got the same schedule. It was a 23:45 schedule, and I couldn't believe, like halfway round, I just started knocking time off the schedule, which I kept trying to comprehend what was going to happen, what was happening, and I thought it was all going to go wrong, and I'd just start throwing up and slow down, and which is what happened on the Paddy Buckley so much. But yeah, it didn't. And I think from there I've done 14 24-hour rounds now. Wow. And I've only failed once, and that was that's actually the Lakes 24-hour record that I set off in a sleet sort of snowstorm in May 2021. And that's the only one that I've actually pulled out of. I'm quite good at keeping going.
Nicky, there's an unbelievable amount in what you said, and there's so much I want to dig into. If I dive in quickly with our "what makes you come alive" question, out of all of that, and the way you defined yourself was super broad, and you've spent 2 whole weeks of your life doing 24-hour rounds, which is a bit mind-blowing. But just tell us, try and boil it down. What makes you come alive in all of this?
It is being on the mountain. My screensaver is when I was up in the snowy hills, and you can just see the whole way round. You can just see the sun's rising, because we got up early and we were up there for the sun to rise, and you can just see mountains for as far as you can see. And it is, it was funny that I never coined that name, Run Forever, but that's almost what I'd like to be able to do. And I think you can do it if you fuel yourself and sleep enough. So I think that's it. It's definitely, and also having just done the spine, I was climbing the Cheviots it's not the Cheviot, but that climb out of Burness, and I just got into a really good rhythm, and I thought, this is what I love doing. I don't love running through muddy fields for miles and miles and miles going, the dales are pretty and all the rest of it, but actually I just love being up high and getting myself up high, and then being up high and staying up high and going down and up and down and up all day. And then that feeling at the end of the day when you've done like 8 or 10 hours and you're coming down, there's nothing like it, especially, you're just coming down and, at 4 o'clock or 6 o'clock or 8 o'clock. I say 4 o'clock because I'm remembering in Scotland once when we were coming down, it was 4 o'clock and we had to drive home afterwards. So it was like a 7-hour drive afterwards. But it was still so worth it to get, like a full day. We'd been up since some silly o'clock, like 5 o'clock, to get the best, the most of the day in. And that's wow. Yeah, it's what makes me come alive, and what, poring over maps, planning the next trips. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting back on the mountains now.
That is absolutely beautiful. And so ultra running brings together, it seems to us, the kind of the mind and the body thing in this really unique way. If I can just sort of do the body bit first, you said something almost casually. I think I heard you right. You sort of found the Bob Graham round easy, so you were looking for the next challenge. What was that exhilarating journey like, realizing that you had this potential to run really, really long distances really quite fast? What was that awakening like, sort of, 17, 18 years ago?
Yeah, because that didn't really happen until somebody suggested the 24-hour round after I'd been doing, I did the Bob Graham, the Paddy Buckley and the Charlie Ramsey, and then a couple of 100-mile races. And then I was sort of looking about, and somebody suggested, a friend of mine, the 24-hour round. And when I looked at that, I thought, oh no, that's way too fast. And I went out and just started to time some of the splits and thought, actually, if I do a bit more, work, I can do this. But looking at the schedules for the records was really mind blowing. When I was looking like the Bob Graham, 18. The record was 19 something, and I did 18:12 the first time, and then 18:06 the second time, and that was. And then the Paddy Buckley, the record was 19:20, I think, which is a really good record, and I did 19:02. So, but looking at the times of people that are like my heroes, Anne Stenterford and Mark Artell, and trying to find out their lines, I really did think, this is really going to be at the limit of what I can do to beat these records. It was. But I also had really good days for those records. The Bob Graham didn't go too well, but Paddy Buckley was a superb day, which is really nice because it is, I suppose it could be my favourite round. I can't quite decide between that and the Charlie Ramsey. They're so different. But yeah, that sort of realising that I was fast. Yeah.
Yeah. You spoke about that limit. And so how much of it is a body limit and how much of it is a mind limit when you're running that far and that fast?
I think quite a lot is a mind limit. I do my own schedules, and I was going to sound quite good at it. I don't like to say that I'm sort of, but I have a sort of knack of getting everybody's times, reading a lot of reports, their reports, if I can, and then just looking at it and then thinking, where would I be in this? Where are my strengths and where are my weaknesses as such? And then the trouble with schedules, of course, is when you're out there, they can be a double-edged sword, because as soon as you get behind them, you worry. You can't help but worry. So, but then they kick you up the arse a little bit, because they don't just go, you have to pick it up. You just have to go faster, out of breath, whatever you need to do, eat some more, leave your supporters behind, and get on with it. Otherwise, you're not going to get the record.
That's an incredibly strong mentality, though, isn't it? It takes something special to be able to just say, no, look, I'm a little bit behind, so I'm just going to drive myself faster. And if the supporters can't keep up, then, doesn't matter. This is what I've got to do. Is that just the way you are? Or is that something you've had to work on? Where's that come from?
No, I think that's how I am. Yeah. I don't think I've ever really had to sort of think I need to work on pushing myself harder. I do push myself really hard. And I think people are quite surprised if I do a relay, I could be really gipping behind. If my partner is faster than me, I will almost be throwing up trying to keep up with them. And I know when they look behind, they're like really shocked at sometimes. Oh, bloody hell. She's really pushing herself. I better slow down. I'm like, no, don't slow down. I'll just try harder. Just give me a gel.
If you look deeper into your past, Nicky, like even earlier in life, do you have any notion of where that ability to push yourself and hold yourself to that standard came from? Were you like that as a teenager or a child, or?
I don't really remember. I suppose having brothers and sisters, we've always been competitive with one another. And I am very competitive. I was dry stone walling with my husband, and you do one side each, and I can't bear it if he gets to the end of his row before I get to the end of my row.
Absolutely. Makes sense. Why am I not surprised?
So I think that's I think being competitive with myself and with I can run to a time, and it was strange during COVID as well with all the virtual stuff, how some people couldn't they couldn't go out on their own and imagine people, but I was quite happy. I could quite easily imagine the people that I'm usually racing against just in front of me or just behind me, and I think I raced just as hard, if not more, because there's nobody actually watching how much pain you're going through. So,
and can we go back to the period when you were coming through breast cancer treatment? You survived that. You running, it sounded like, both bracketed that, but also ran, if you like, all the way through that period. What role did running play during what must have been an unbelievably testing time for you?
It was really, really, really important. I was back running after the mastectomy in 3 weeks. Felt shocking. Wow. Yeah, shocking as in just really heavy-legged. But in your head, you're glad you're doing it, but you're also just, the legs feel like sacks of potatoes. So, yeah. And, I can't remember when I went to Wales, how long it was before I was sort of out sort of up in the proper hills. And I don't know, you can forget about it when you're up there. But whereas when you're at home, you're looking at emails, you're waiting for letters to come through. I banned myself from going on the internet to search for things because it was all, bad news. So, I think if I had a little treat, I could go and play a game of solitaire on the internet instead of looking for details because you get your test results and they've got like little numbers and things after them. So you start wondering what that means and you start Googling it. It's never good. It's never, you don't understand it. You don't understand what they're writing. So you're better off not knowing. Well, not knowing, but asking them to explain it. So, running was really, really important. I don't know what I'd have done if I hadn't been able to run. I'd have definitely got outside and done something. But there's not, you can't, I don't know, I can't get into gardening like I can get into running.
And is that a period of your life that you go back to ever when things are either super tough in a race or more difficult? Is there ever any self-talk which is along the lines of, like, if I can get through that, I can get through pretty much anything?
Yeah. I mean, nothing's really as hard as breast cancer. I think also it's hard for you, but it's hard for all your family. It's hard telling people. It's hard watching them being worried about you. So the whole sort of experience, and also you sort of immerse yourself in it for however long you're in it, and it seems like a really long time. Everything goes so slowly because obviously you just want everything to be done in 2 weeks or something. You'd like the whole thing to be squished so that you were busy every day having operations, but it doesn't happen like that. You have to wait and have hospital appointments and delays and things. And then when it's over, I do say to people, when you're in it, just get in it. Just be available for any appointment that they offer you. Just go. And then it quick speeds it all up, doesn't it? And then when you're out of it, you'll be able to slowly get back to your own life, because you don't go back to your own life because you're not the same person. You have different values in life.
You sound, you're coming, and as you talk about this, you're coming across as sort of very calm and controlled, and they seem like kind of values or traits that are key to your arsenal, in life, but also in running. I think, one of your quotes that I found researching this was, one of your strengths being the mental ability to overcome difficulties in life and racing and self-management and control. And that's what's coming across when you speak about that period of, you were able to manage that. And tell me a bit about how that looks like in a race now. Like how do you manage when things go wrong or are going wrong, and how do you approach that?
Yeah, I think I don't know what you'd call it. So things go wrong, like on the spine. Somewhere across Monday, I think my feet started heating up and my eating was low, and I just didn't have enough energy. And I know now, I don't know whether I know now or I've always known that you need to stop this downward spiral, because it won't come back up without your intervention. And there's time to do this in an ultra as well. If things go wrong, say on a park run, it's too short. You can't catch that person in front of you because there's not enough time. But with an ultra, you can actually just have a few hours of like chilling out a little bit, eating more, sitting down, get back up, and you can make that time up and probably more because of you've pulled yourself back at the right time. So yeah, I think it probably is how I approached the breast cancer in a way. I always look for some sort of positive in there. I mean, the fact that they offered me reconstruction straight away, I just took as a real positive that they thought I was going to live, because otherwise they wouldn't bother reconstructing me. It'd be a waste of money.
There's a logic there. I see that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the real, it's the positive that I took out of all that stuff that they were telling me about what I'd got and what they were having to do to me. And it's the same with, so if you've got a problem in an ultra, you just need to you need to stop yourself from just thinking it'll go away on its own, because it absolutely won't. It'll get worse, blisters, eating, whatever, it'll just get worse. So you have to stop your competitive. That's the hard bit though, isn't it? Because people are going past you while you're dealing with this. People are going past you, and that's why a lot of people they don't do it. They just keep trying to beat that person in front of them, and then the wheels completely fall off. So I'm pretty good at stopping myself, just trying to ignore everybody passing me and getting on and fixing whatever needs fixing in whichever way. Like on the Tour de Géant glaciers, my GPS decided it didn't have the next track. I couldn't believe it. I'd done about 4 days, hardly any sleep, middle of nowhere, go to get the next track, it's not there. It's like, so I ended up staying with people that I didn't want to be with, because I didn't know the way. My phone battery had died. And so, it took me a few hours to figure out what I could do. And I needed to find somewhere with Wi-Fi to get the track off my phone onto the GPS. To do that, I needed to charge the phone up. I also needed to use their really, really, really slow Wi-Fi, which took me forever. And all this time, that it took me about 2 hours to sort this one problem out in a really, because of all the, you're in the middle of nowhere. And all these people coming past and in and out, and these people that I've been pushing hard to overtake, and I just had to let them go, because otherwise I had about 3 more days of the race to do. It was it was hard. But I was actually really happy when I figured out, when I was trudging along, trying to keep up with these people I didn't want to be with, trying to figure out how I could sort this out. When I actually came across a solution there, I was actually quite happy. I was so happy when I did it as well, and I was like off again with my GPS and sorted.
So this is like a great metaphor for like this idea of like, you have to have the courage to interrupt yourself and sort of pause and fix what needs fixing before you go on. So for the people listening, Nicky, what have you either learned to tell yourself, or what do you tell yourself now to make sure you stop and do the maintenance work before you go on? What goes on in your head?
Well, I made up this rule of 3 a few years ago for myself, which is basically, when something's been nagging you as you're running along, like you need your gloves out of your, but they're in the bag, so you can't be asked getting them out. And then this little thing goes, oh, my hands are cold again, and I need my gloves. But I'll do it. If you've actually thought of that, if you think you've thought of it 3 times, I know you'll have thought of it a lot more than that, and you need to just then. Like, that is really your body. That's your body telling you it wants this thing that it's been nagging you about for the last 2 hours or whatever. So you need to stop and do it. And actually, when you do it and put those gloves on, the immense relief is you always think, I wish I'd done this an hour ago or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, it's my rule of 3. Yeah. And there's no such word as can't, and I always think that where there's a will, there's a way. There's always a way of doing, even, you can do it yourself or you can do it with somebody's help, but there's always a way to sort out, what's wrong.
Brilliant.
So it's kind of at the center of this podcast, and it feels like we're in this kind of territory now, is that those kind of transferable skills that you learn from running and apply to life. What if you could put your finger on one thing, what would be that one lesson maybe that you've learned from running that kind of helps you out in life?
The other way round, because the one the weather's never as bad as you think it is. So, running's taught you that you could be inside. I don't know. I think that's the only thing that I know now, that, you just get the kit on and get out there. And that is the same with all of the situations. So, public speaking actually, I was going to say, quite scares me. It does in a way. I still get nervous and everything, but it's never as bad as what you think. It's never bad, actually. You just have to make that first move, say the first words, and get into your sort of stride, and then it'll be fine. So I don't know if running's taught. No, it does help me do that.
Yeah, we can reverse the question as well, which is, how much has your life experience informed your running, or put that into perspective, or help you get through difficult moments when you're racing?
Yeah, life and running. Running is my sort of life. I don't know.
You're allowed to say that with more confidence.
Run.
Like that is.
Well, I'm trying to answer your question, and it's quite hard to sort of. Yeah, I don't tend to do a lot of mindfulness. It just happens. What I do.
Yeah.
I don't figure out like why it works. It just does.
Yeah.
Like, 2 of my worst questions I hate people asking me is, what's your motivation and what's your inspiration? It's like, I think if you've got motivation, you don't actually think about what motivated you. You just get up in the morning and you go out for a run. You don't need motivation because you've just got it, haven't you?
Totally.
So you don't need to look around for it.
We're definitely not going to ask those questions. And I can hear, like, just the intrinsic motivation of being out on the hills is just awesome. You did say something earlier, which does go back into that more introspective side of things. You talked about values changing a little bit around the time of coming through breast cancer. And I just wanted to just go back there and see if you just sort of could almost enumerate what shifted for you consciously on a values level through that.
Yeah, because after something like this has happened to you, you appreciate life a lot more. That you're not, like, before this, you just assume you're going to maybe live into your 70s or something like that, and if there's something that you want to do, you can do it in 5 years' time or 10 years' time or whatever. And I think it just brought that home to me a bit more, that don't waste your life. You've got one and you don't know how long it's going to last, and so if there's something that you want to do, I mean, you can't be sort of selfish to everybody else, but just try and find a way to slot it in when you can. And also, I suppose people talk about a bucket list, and I don't really have one. I don't really like the word. I think, if you've got the rounds, when I did them, they inspired me and I wanted to be on the mountains. I didn't want to have a list on my wall that I just ticked off. I've done the Bob Graham. I don't think our mountains should be abused like that. I think there's more special than that, And actually, I really like it that the mountains teach people and even myself lessons every now and again. You forget to take, or you don't take the right kit out, and you get freezing cold, and you think, "Yep, you taught me a lesson today. Sorry, I did it again." You follow somebody in a race who doesn't know where they're going. You're like, "Yep, I got taught a lesson today." Every 5 years, I know exactly how to navigate. I just get lazy. And I'm tired, so I follow somebody, and then So I don't know where we're going with that, but yeah,
that was brilliant. No, that was lovely. Maybe if we take a few minutes now just to sort of look a little bit more forward, and I'm curious about not necessarily specific races that you've got coming up, but you've mentioned, I think in the past, that you're selective and mindful about what you choose to do in terms of sort of training and racing these days. What given your CV is immense, what do you look for in a race now going forward?
Something that's different, but then maybe as I'm getting older, I think I need to sort of think about, I want to carry on running for a long time, so I can't keep beating myself up doing like longer and longer and longer and harder events. I'm not getting faster. So I need to start having a different values as to why I'm doing the races. I admire people who, can keep going even though they're going down the rankings, because that's what's going to happen as you get older. You can't really. I mean, you can race your own category, which is really nice, actually, having the vet categories. What do I look for now? I think it's something that's different and something that will push me in a different way. Like the Spine was a distance that I knew I could do, but in winter, in the summer, with checkpoints that are sort of randomly spread out across the event, whereas the European events seem to have checkpoints like at reasonably set distances and time, whereas the Spine was much more mixed up. So it's a much different event to do. So I'm sort of looking around now. I think now I'd like to do something with more mountains in it than the Spine. So, and also, I think in COVID, obviously things got pushed back. So I then ended up doing 3 abroad trips, all one after another, and I got a bit jaded with all the travel. And then you just think, actually, I've just moved to Scotland, and we've got a huge amount in our own country. Why do we have to go abroad? That's the other reason I chose the Spine, this year, because of that. I didn't want to be tripping off abroad all the time. I've got, lovely house, dogs. I could run here just as happily, run across all those mountains in Scotland. And that's what I'm looking for now.
Talking about sort of more unusual events, we spoke to Damien after he'd just come back from the Barkley Marathons. I know you've attempted it twice. Is that unfinished business for you? Are you ever thinking of going back there?
And if it is, why on earth is it unfinished business for you?
Well, because you didn't finish, and I think I can only not finish a race so many times before I go, actually, I'll leave this to Damien. It's a fantastic event to be part of. It was a twice in a lifetime experience to be out there, and I might go for support for somebody just to be part of it, but I might just just watch from the outside now. It's I'm just really keen for a woman to get round. That would be really good. And I think in a way I went and I did like 1 loop the first year, 2 loops, but got timed out in the second year time I did it. So hopefully, like with the records, all my records have been broken, I think. And so, I sort of show other women what I can do, and they're going, well, hang on a minute, I beat her hands down in a race, so I'm going to go and have a go at doing her records as well. And it's good. No, it's good to see the women coming through. It's really exciting. I love it. I always remember going up the first 3 Peaks race that I ever did, and I was going up Whernside, and I caught Wendy Dodds, and she was she was trying to stay ahead of me, and I'd paced it quite well, and I was, I don't know, half her age. So and she was like, "Oh, girl, well done." And then at the end, she came up to me. She said, "I tried to catch you, but I couldn't." And I just thought, what a great way to be, just so encouraging. But obviously, she's so competitive. She wanted to keep with me, but as well. And she's always been like that. And that's how I want to be, yeah. So if I can help these youngsters coming through with advice, or like with Emma Stewart, she's, up and coming, anything that I could sort of help her with, I will.
Oh, that's fantastic. And actually, you answered my next question already, because I was going to ask you about how important that is to inspire the next generation of women, particularly coming up to do better than you. So maybe just to finish off, Nicky, tell us, now you've moved to Scotland, what does the next year or so hold for you, and where can people find out more about you and what you're doing now?
I'm actually organising a race in the Galloway Hills in April. I'm doing it in conjunction with Galloway Mountain Rescue to raise money for them, and it's called Bruce's Crown. It was run in 2006, and before that. I didn't actually do this race. I did the shorter version called the Heart of Granite, which was 20 miles and took me 9 hours. And I did it actually before breast cancer and after breast cancer. So it's another, it's another sort of like, it's been a race and when I've really loved and wanted to put back on or get back on, ever since the guy had to give it up because he's moved away. And that's really exciting. So again, it's 46 miles, about 3,000 meters of climb, and it goes in a sort of loop round all the hills in the Galloway Forest Park. And I'm making it a team of 4 event, because there used to be a race in the Peak District called the High Peak Marathon, which was a team of 4 event. And I like the team thing. I think I'm quite a good team player. I think I might be a bit too bossy sometimes.
I'd have you on my team, Nicky, if you're available. That's all right. I think you'll be all right.
But I do like it, because with the High Peak Marathon, we were able to, with good team management, you can beat the faster guys who just leave each other and for dead, and then they're surprised when they drop. The weaker team member drops out, because everybody's got to be slow. There will be a slow person at any point throughout the race. There's always a slow person who's struggling, and it's how you manage that person and change that person round so it's not the same person the whole time, because otherwise it's really miserable for them. And that's in April. So it's got a website, Bruce's Crown, or you can find it through my website, runbg.co.uk. I've got a link on there to it.
We'll put both websites in the show notes of the episode so people can find it.
That's great, yeah. And after that, I'm doing the E250, I think it's called, which is out in Switzerland, which is another team event. And my friend Kirsty Hewittson's asked me to do that. That's great, because that's another, it's mountainous. I love it. That's what I want to do. And then I might look at doing a round in Scotland, but I've decided rounds in Scotland need doing in spring, before the tussocks and the grass and the bracken and the midges and everything else grows that ruins your experience in midsummer. I mean, no, actually, you can have really good days in Scotland, but I think vegetation is huge part of doing a round in Scotland. So the earlier in the year, say May, would be good. And I don't know that I'll be fit enough by May to do a round. There's a new round called the Tindrum round, which I've been recceing, but I think it's hard because it's got quite a lot of rough terrain on it. And I think my aged bones don't really like tumbling down mountains like they used to. But we'll see.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
That's fantastic.
So much good stuff coming up.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. We'll provide a few links in the show notes. So enjoyed hearing your passion, your meticulous preparation as well, and how you go with that, and and your competitive side. I can totally identify with that, as well as the rule of three. My rule of three tends to relate to thinking about half-covered chocolate digestive biscuits, and if I think 3 times, then I've got to have one. But it's
and you're not never allowed to throw food away. That's the other one.
Oh, I like
as soon as you chuck it, half an hour later, you'll want to eat that.
You need it. Again, there is a metaphor here for
eat
life.
It or put it back in your pocket.
This is Don't waste anything, is what I'm hearing, because you'll regret it. Nicky, absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the RunAlive podcast. That's been great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you ever so much.
Baby.
Oh, it was such a privilege to talk to Nicky, one of those people who just, transcends the sport and is a proper, legitimate running celebrity. What a privilege to have her on the podcast. Jenny, it's your first go-do on the RunAlive podcast. How was it? What did you think of the interview? What stood out for you?
I thought it was fantastic, and I learned so much from it. But one thing that really stood out to me was kind of the first thing she kind of said about what made her come alive, being up on a mountain, watching a sunrise. And I feel that kind of linked back to the very end of the episode, where she kind of has that massive appreciation for life after everything she's been through with breast cancer and how she's done all these amazing challenges and things. And I think that simplicity of just going up onto a mountain, watching the sunrise, yeah, fantastic. And I think a lot of people can probably relate to something like that.
So true, isn't it? And, that is put even more in context by everything that she's been through and overcome and struggled with her breast cancer and all that kind of stuff, and that ability. That kind of actually helped her out to get through it in some ways, didn't it? And
yeah, definitely.
Really inspiring.
You go up to a mountain, you watch the sunrise, and it kind of it is that moment of just peace and being able to think about everything or think about nothing. And I think that's really important in life these days.
Yeah. She's found her way brilliantly towards this thing that a lot of people struggle to get to or try very intentionally to get to, this sort of taking enormous pleasure in really simple, awesome things like a sunrise. And she said she doesn't do mindfulness, it kind of just happens to her. And that is just, I'm quite jealous of that in a way, actually, that she's found her way to that. And it's integral to her day job as well, because as you said, she's an incredible runner, and it's sort of what she does. I think she's amazing in that way.
Yeah, it's funny that you say she doesn't do mindfulness, and it just sort of comes to her because, actually, she is pretty mindful. I think you were going to pick up on the rule of three, and that's quite a mindful exercise.
It is. That struck me hugely. When this kind of idea that she has, where if you've noticed something 3 times, it's time to pay attention to it fully and do something about it. And a little bit of a throwaway there as well was, you've probably noticed it more than 3 times. You may just not have noticed that you've noticed it. I thought that was genius. And the willingness to then interrupt your race, or let's say life, and pay attention to what is sort of nagging at you and is sticky with you. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. I love that.
I think that shows a lot of courage as well, actually being able to kind of take a step back and notice those things and act upon them. I don't know if I'd be very good at that, to be honest.
Jenny, I'll tell you, I'm not. The idea of, I know she runs ultra distances, but the idea of stopping in a race, like I've done things like triathlon and duathlon, even in transition, the big rule is always be moving forward, almost like never stop. The idea of stopping and doing that maintenance work freaks me out, but she knows the benefit of it, and it speaks volumes, right?
Absolutely, and it's reflected in everything she does, so it definitely works.
Yeah. Ed, what for you? Tell us a bit more about what you really took away from hearing Nicky talk.
Yeah, well, a simple one for me, I think, which is, what she said about the weather's never as bad as you think it is. And I think for me, it actually played out incredibly practically the very next morning after we spoke to her, because it was pouring with rain and I had a session to do, and I literally wouldn't have done it had I not reminded myself of what she'd said. And she was right. It was fine, especially once I got out on it and got running fast, and I warmed up, and it was fine. I got the session done. But I think there's like a real sort of wider application of that as well. And if you kind of take it in a metaphorical way, you can feel under the cosh. You often at work, you've got a deadline coming up, or you've got a big meeting that you're not. In fact, I've got one this afternoon that I'm a little bit nervous about, and I'm sure it's not going to be as bad as I think. But again, it's like that mental discipline of build it up into something worse, because I just don't want to step out the door or whatever it might be. So that's already been like inspirational to me to help me, on a very practical level, to get out and do that session that I wouldn't have done otherwise. But I think it is like it's a learning for me going forward of just remember. It's probably not going to be as bad as I'm thinking it is going to be.
It won't. and honestly, people have just heard us talk to Nicky, and this stuff that we're saying right now, that we're personally inspired by what she said, it's a pleasure to be able to bring it to other people. But I was also completely, massively inspired. It was an absolute high point talking to Nicky and just being able to learn from her and appreciate this thing that she's done incredible things, but she's just a person too, right? And you can take it into your lives.
Yeah.
Shall I move us towards the practical steps for the audience today, Ed?
Yeah, go ahead, because I think you've got a good one.
Well, it links right back to that thing that stood into the foreground, and it's about the rule of three. We've used the word mindful. It was right through what you said, Jenny, as well. So the question for the audience and the go-do is just have a reflect, pay attention to your life in a particular way, and apply the rule of three to yourself. What's been coming up for you, maybe 2 or 3, maybe more times, that tells you need to pay attention to something. Might be something going really well that you need to keep doing, or it might be something that just isn't quite right in life. You need to pay attention to it. And our go-do challenge is to interrupt your life process, pay attention to it, figure out what might need fixing, and make that happen. Basically, be more Nicky on your own life, is what we're offering you.
That's great, Gary. It's for me, like, that sounds a little bit like a kind of anti-procrastination tool. Like, I'm liable to know what I should be focusing on, but I just don't want to, or so like, give us a sort of practical tip of how we should kind of snap out of it and just get on with it.
I think my challenge to the audience to make it practical would be, first of all, be honest with yourself. I think it starts with a little bit of an inner journey. So notice what you're noticing, and then take a bit of inspiration. We've been talking about that from someone like Nicky. So this is a bit of a mindset thing. This is going to be worth it. And then I'm a huge believer in get a pen and paper and write something down. Get it on the page. Just make a little note to yourself, whatever works for you, but just do a little bit of thinking in ink, as they say, and get it down and get it out of your head. You'll be amazed at what you might get down on the page and reveal to yourself.
Well, I was going to suggest very similar, but use a notes app on your phone and type it in. But either way.
Jenny, this is why we have you around. I do have a smartphone, but you can tell I'm going old school.
You should see Gary's smartphone. It's like the size of West Africa.
see my notebooks and my post-it note connection. But the thing that stands out to me in what you said there, Jenny, is use the medium that works for you, right? Use the thing that is practical and is meaningful for you in terms of keeping track of what you do and how you do things better.
For sure. Thanks so much for listening to the RunAlive podcast. If you really enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend or a colleague so we can reach more people. And the best way to do this is through personal recommendations.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. We're at @run_alive on Instagram. You can also find us on LinkedIn, X, and TikTok.